Okay, welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James, and I come from the acting background.
And I'm Josh Knapp. I'm a broadcast engineer.
Here we go.
All right. We are going to talk about a movie from last year. It's available on Netflix streaming right now. It is an Australian movie from a first-time writer-director, The Babadook.
The Babadook.
Yes. Jennifer Kent is the writer-director. And I guess she's like an actress too, but she's been in a couple things. But I didn't really know much about this movie other than what I'd heard, and I'd heard that it's a really good horror movie.
Yeah, that was going to be my first question. Why did you recommend this? Because it just came out of nowhere last week. You were like, let's watch this movie. And I was like,
Yeah.
Okay. But what was it that you heard?
A lot of people, I mean, I listen to podcasts, other podcasts, and there's one guy on the Nerdist podcast, and he's really big into, his name's Jonah Ray. He's a comedian, but he's really big into, like Living Dead movies.
Okay.
I mean, so he's big into those, and so he's very specific about zombies, and he has this whole like, you know, there's very specific things that zombies can and can't do, and what
He's
they
an
are.
expert
and like,
on
yes.
zombies. Okay,
Yeah,
fair enough.
And he said that he really liked the Babadook as a horror movie, you know, or that kind of a. It also seemed very stylized to me, like from what I saw, like the trailer that I saw, and I knew it was going to be kind of difficult in the Exorcist vein, you know. It seemed like that to me, and I mean, I don't know. I also just read a quote of William Friedkin said that that he's never seen a movie that is scarier than The Babadook. He directed The Exorcist.
Oh yeah, I could discuss that with him for hours. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me? No way.
Well, I don't
see
know what
he's
his
saying.
relationship is with the movie. But,
Yeah, I see
you
what
know.
he's saying, but he, without a shadow of a doubt, created the scariest.
Yeah.
I mean, up there in the top 3. We already did a show on this.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, you cannot argue The Exorcist being just plain out scary.
Well, and that
There's
movie
something
has
horrific
and
about
that movie has a religious component to it too that is it I think heightens that movie, but whereas this movie doesn't, and you're kind of trying to figure things out. The other thing about this movie is, I mean, it's let me just give a description real quick. It's a single mother plagued by the violent death of her husband, battles with her son's fear of a monster lurking in the house, but soon discovers a sinister presence all around her. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's not bad.
But the cool thing about this movie happening now, as opposed to happening, you know, let's say 30 years ago, is the fact that we've become, in some ways, desensitized to movies with unreliable narrators. And so, since this movie doesn't have a direct narrator, like I heard something in the house, you know, it's not a voiceover narrator,
Right.
but we're kind of seeing things through the mother's perspective most of the time. And so right there, you are put in a position as a viewer, is this real? Is it not real? You know, like it's that whole, like, I mean, you know, Friday the 13th, you know, somebody gets his head chopped off or whatever. I mean, it's real. I mean,
Right.
it's happening.
Yeah.
So there's no other choice other than this is actually happening. But a movie like this happening, you know, being made right now, you can kind of vacillate between, is this actually happening? Is this all in her head? Where is this going? So
Right, because I
so
wouldn't
like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't classify it as your typical scary movie. It's more a psychological thriller
To
with
some extent.
really, really creepy elements to it.
Yeah.
Like extremely creepy. And I told you that when you suggested it, I was like, it's a scary movie. Maybe we should watch it together.
Mm-hmm.
So I waited, and I saw it at 4:00 in the afternoon. I opened all the windows, turned all the lights on, because my suspension of disbelief, I've often stated, is really strong.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'd watched this at night, you know,
By yourself?
Oh, forget it. Forget it. I mean, once I figured out sort of what was going on, I was a little bit more secure with it.
Mm-hmm.
That does not dumb down the element of creepiness, though.
Yeah.
On any level. Mm-hmm. So,
And I kind of, that whole time I was in that same realm. I think that they do a good job. The filmmaker does a good job of giving, especially the house that most of the movies set in, giving it a vibe, like a
Well, it's a character in the movie.
It is, and it's also the way, like, no house that I've ever seen has been painted that way. Or have you noted? Did you notice in that movie
Yeah.
everything was blue?
Yeah, I
the
did.
walls were blue, and like the couch was blue, and the carpet was blue. And I mean, it was a wood floor, of course, so it can creak and all that stuff. But yeah, it just didn't look like a normal house. I mean, it looked like a
Well, also it's Australia though too, so it's a foreign
Maybe.
country, and sometimes when you go and watch movies in Britain, well, not watch movies in Britain, but
Set.
that take place in England, they have those little row houses and those alleyways. They look nothing like anything in America, so
Yeah,
we're not
that's true.
usually used to that. You go up north to where my family's from, Philadelphia, and you see those row houses.
Mm-hmm.
They look completely different than stuff down here. They don't have yards like this. They
Mm-hmm.
have little, 5 feet by 10-foot yards, and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them have backyards, so it looks completely different. So it might just be that it takes place in Australia, but I know what you're talking about.
could be, but
all
like,
of that's done on purpose, though.
Her refrigerator is like the world's oldest refrigerator.
Yeah, I think all of that's because it's Australia.
Okay.
I think, but I also think that that's purposely done because I think you're not supposed to know what decade, what time. I think this
yeah.
is supposed to be a universal. This could have happened
Yeah, nobody really has
25 years ago.
a cell phone. Does she have a cell phone?
No,
think
they had
she
a cord
does.
phone.
Corded phone,
No, yeah, they had a
yes.
corded phone that. No, they didn't. She doesn't talk on a cell phone, does she?
Okay.
No, she doesn't. And the
Yeah.
car's sort of. I don't know because I don't
Well,
know.
the car looks like a kind of an 80s
Yeah.
car.
See, I think
70s,
all that's
80s
on
car.
purpose, though.
Yeah.
I think that. Well, of course it is. It's intentional, but
Sure.
I think it's supposed to be any time, any date. Even the way she dresses, even
Yeah.
the hospital or the nursing home that she works in looks.
Yeah,
it
it's
looks old
very-
and new at the same time. It's
Uh-huh.
weird.
Oh,
it's
and
good.
also another great example of that is whenever she turns on the TV, like it seems like the only thing that's on is like 30s movies,
Oh yeah, that's true.
And there's not. I mean, they do have some infomercials,
Infomercials
but
and
they're
stuff.
they're like 80s infomercials is what it kind of looks
Right,
like.
but I think that's because it's Australia. I think
you think that Australia hasn't gotten past the 80s?
What's-a-majiggy thinks David Hasselhoff is the prime king of the world.
Oh, you mean
Germany.
Germany?
Yeah, and is it France that thinks Jerry Lewis is the biggest star in the world?
I don't.
And Family Ties is just playing. No,
All right.
cultural things
right.
do not. Nowadays, it's different.
The internet makes anything available to anyone.
Not North Korea doesn't.
Well, okay. Well, that's a very specific example, but yes,
It's
I
a
agree.
whole country.
That's
It's not
true.
that specific.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
yeah, no.
Different countries have different tastes and different styles and different time frames.
That's true. That's true. But anyway, so I think that's a definite stylistic choice.
Absolutely.
that she made was to have that, because I mean it's very schmaltzy and it makes her think about her husband, her husband who passed away while taking her to the hospital while she was going to give birth to her son. So how did you like the performances in the movie?
It's good that you're starting with this because is it Noah Wiseman? Is it Noah Wiseman, the
right.
young kid? He's excellent. Like I really, honestly, and truthfully felt bad for him as a real person, not just the character, because it looks like he is frightened quite a few times. Like, when somebody jumps out at you walking around the corner and you get startled, that happens to him a couple of times and it's genuine. So I'm wondering if he's just a really good actor and he's in the moment and he really does. I mean, kids' suspension of disbelief, children's suspension of disbelief is much stronger. So, but even really good kid actors, child actors, you can tell they're acting sometimes. You can tell that they've learned their lines, they know their mark. This guy, natural, even when he has those fits in the car. So
Oh, wow, yeah.
I was like, he's something to watch. And do you know who she is? What is her name?
Her name's Essie Davis.
Do you know who she is?
No.
She's in The Matrix Reloaded. She's the one at the end. She's in more of Matrix
Revolutions?
Yes, thank you. She's the one who has Bane and Neo in the doctor's room, and they're trying to figure out why his brain pattern looks the way that it does. And she's got shorter, redder hair in the movie, and she says, I've seen these brain patterns before, but it's usually somebody who's jacked in, meaning somebody who's plugged into the Matrix. But Neo's out of the Matrix. And you remember Bane comes out of the Matrix now as Mr. Smith. Agent Smith has taken over that guy's body. And they're both laying on the tables at the end of Reloaded. She's the nurse or doctor. Yeah, I recognized her, but I couldn't figure out where it was. And then I looked up her bio. She's superb. I hope she works as an actress for the rest of her life based on this performance alone. I could not figure out, first of all, the style that it's shot in is very interesting, but it's because it almost feels like the director molded her style around that woman's acting style, if you will. First of all, it's so naturalistic and believable, you can't discount it. But it was so well done that when she was up late at night and she was having insomnia and she couldn't get to sleep, and then those moments where she would fall asleep and then all of a sudden have to wake back up and it seemed like the whole day had gone by, I actually felt tired. I actually felt like I had insomnia, and it was 4:00 in the afternoon. I felt scared when she was scared. So I don't know if that's a sign of a great actress, but there's not a moment that didn't go by that she has to take such strange turns and beats. I'll give you an example. At the party, when she's at her niece's party, and the kind of upper middle class lady says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I heard that your husband passed away. I take care of people like you, blah, blah, blah."
I work with disadvantaged mothers.
That's what she says. Yeah, exactly. Well, I was like, that's not going to play well. But she's very polite. She's very polite. And then she has to make that sharp turn and become kind of sarcastic and, "Oh, it must be because I'm a disadvantaged mother." She makes that really left turn. That's really hard to play. Because playing polite and blowing something off, you can play that as a verb. But to make that sharp beat turn and make it believable, it's hard. She's very tired and having anxiety, but she's never mean to her child. And then all of a sudden she has to be ferocious.
Yeah.
And she makes that really mean turn at that one point when he's hungry. And she juts up out of bed and tells him to go eat. I was like, wait, what? Any other actress of lesser caliber, it would have been almost comical, almost campy. But you have to believe that she's really so disassociated at that moment that she's going to yell at her kid, who she's defended the whole entire movie up to this point. So the answer to your question is the acting's top notch.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't move into melodrama, which is
Not once.
Yeah, which is got to be easy with something like this, where you've got weird. I mean, they're doing things to her voice, and they're putting her in these, like you said, extreme situations. So how is she supposed to play it? Like it seems like it's kind of like the needle's in the middle, and then she's like moving one way or the other, as opposed to just like hard line one way or hard line the other way. There's a little bit of both in her performance. There's a little bit of the loving mother in the extreme outburst, and there's a little bit of the like kind of like in the back, like the grating on her. And there's a device they use, is the tooth.
Yeah.
Throughout the movie, and they start that really early in the movie. She has something wrong with her tooth.
She's driving the very first fit he has. She starts pressing on her cheek like, "What is this? What is this?" But what I find interesting is that, remember when she's talking to her sister and her sister says, "Your niece doesn't want to have the birthday party with your son anymore because her husband was killed on her son's day of birth." They don't celebrate the son's birthday on the actual day. Her and her sister, her sister has a daughter and she has a son, they celebrate it on her niece's birthday. Does that make sense? Yeah. And when the sister is telling her the niece doesn't want to have joint parties this time, she's like, "Oh, that's okay. I perfectly understand." That nice demeanor and understanding, you believe she's being genuine in that moment. Then later on in the movie, when she's trying to get the kid to do something, when she's lost her mind, basically, she goes back into that tone. But she's manipulating those emotions, and the kid knows it. But she's like, she starts to freak out, and then she calms herself down. She's like, "It's okay," and she goes back to that same tone. And I was like, but the whole entire time she's really going over the edge.
Do you know what that reminded me of? It reminded me of The Shining, where
yeah.
she's on the other side of the door, and he's oh no, not that part. When she's walking up the stairs backwards with the bat, and he's like, "Light of my life."
Yeah.
I mean, it's that whole like he's trying to hold back or be like, have that, I love you so much, but it can't. It comes through.
I want to convince you to be secure. Yeah. You can play those verbs, and that's exactly what she does. And you can see her mind, she's lost it at this one point in the movie, but you can see she still needs to get what she wants. So she's going to use anything any means necessary, and being the gentle, caring mother, which she's been up to this point, because she's defended her child up to this point, as well she should. She gets a little defensive in the school when the kid gets kicked out of school. She gets a little defensive, but rightly so. People are defensive about their children, especially when they have behavioral
Well, and
issues.
it's also hard. Yeah, and it seems like I couldn't imagine being in that situation because like she's sitting there saying like, "What am I going to do for my child?" And these people seem like they're just brushing him off or not. They're saying that he's different than other people.
Well, it's how they're saying it, because they keep saying the
The
boy,
boy.
and she goes, "The boy has a name."
Yeah.
And that's when she flips, and you're like, "Oh yeah, defend your child." Mother, what's mother cub or mother bear comes out and defends her cubs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the answer to the question was, or the question was, what did I think of the acting? It's top notch. You have to believe what she's going through. She believes, and there's not a split second that I don't.
Great. And so I think that I wanted to talk about some stuff that happened like past a certain point in the movie that could be definitely, I mean, this stuff we've talked about could, I guess, technically be considered spoilers, but I mean, some bad stuff's going to happen.
Well, as soon as she reads the book the second time, you're like, "Oh man."
And we haven't even talked about the book or the character of the Babadook, but it's
that might
definitely
be subliminally on purpose.
Now, is that based on a silent film, or it seems like they intercut. There's a portion in the movie where she's flipping through channels and she's going through like old films are coming up on different channels, and then there's a clip from a movie that looks like what the Babadook looks like, a top hat, like a rain slicker thing, and these weird stick hands or something. I don't know. Stick fingers.
Blade fingers. They're not really blades. They're not really nails. They're like long, pointy fingers.
Yeah.
Crickety, rickety, crunchy things. No, I think some of those old films are real, but I think...
Oh, yeah. I mean, there was the... was it the Phantom of the Opera? Or
there was that. And
Yeah.
then I think the one with the flames, with the devil faces that are carrying the flames, I think that's real.
Okay.
But I think the ones... with the representation of the hat and what the character looks like, I think that's made up for the movie, because this is not based on any legend, or I think this is an original idea for just this movie. Because I looked it up, I was like, is this the Australian boogeyman? Like, is this a common thing? But no, it's all this. It's the Babadook is a character created just for this movie. So I think she interspersed those real films with something that she made look like old films, which she did. That's really hard to do.
Yeah.
You can always tell when somebody's trying to make something look grainy and look old and have the little lines
And
going through it.
I couldn't really
tell the
tell.
difference.
That's why I asked the question. Yeah, I mean, I don't...
I mean, maybe the image came from one of those old films. I don't know. That part I don't know. But I know that the idea of the book and the character is original for this film.
Cool.
Yeah, not based on anything.
That's
Maybe it's
great.
based on like her nightmares or something. I didn't read that far into it.
Yeah.
But if that's based on something she had experience with, I feel bad for
Yikes.
her. And I'm
Yeah.
glad she got to make a movie about it and get it out.
Let's hope so. All right. Well, so I think that, this movie is, I think it'd be a cool movie to see with somebody else. I mean, I ended up kind of watching it by myself too, but I think it'd be a cool movie to see with somebody else, just to kind of like, but it'd need to be somebody you really know, I think, because it'd be a horrible date movie, something like that. Oh, geez.
I don't know how you would look at each other. Like, especially whoever
to be
chose
there-
that. Can
well,
you imagine going on a
well,
date with somebody
oh,
who
yeah.
chose that? You'd be like, what the hell is wrong with you?
First and last date, probably. Yeah.
Totally. You better buy me dinner.
But yeah, I mean, I think that I can't say I enjoyed it in the classic way of like enjoyment, but I don't necessarily seek out these types of movies. Like, I've not seen Annabelle or Insidious or...
See, I wouldn't even classify it in the same category as those. This one is more... As soon as I figured out, and we are getting into spoilers, as soon as I figured out that it was pretty much all in her head to a degree, that this was a symptom of something that's been going on for 7 years because her husband was dead, and it's the same time frame. It's coming up on the little boy's birthday. It's the anniversary of her husband being killed. I realized that, and when the little boy says, "Oh, you let the Babadook in,"
Yes.
then I was like, well, wait, okay. And then you see the character going through her mouth. I was like, okay, this is all going in her mind, but there are physical things that happen in real life
You
that
can't explain it.
couldn't be. I just think it's a metaphor for a manifestation of how we create our own pain in the world. And it was a really creative way to do that. Insidious relies on you knowing that there's an actual demon entity that has entered the room and wants to take over this boy. So same with Annabelle, same with all of those movies.
Conjuring, all that
Conjuring, yeah. All scary on some kind of level. Paranormal Activity. You know something outside yourself has created. This one walks a really fine line. It's really about her mental state of mind, but she has manifested this pain so strongly, it really became something in front of her and actually physically alters her universe. So I still think it's more of a psychological thriller than a scary movie, because once I figured out that this was, what was that? It was strange because I got less scared when I figured out maybe this is all in her head, or maybe this is all being manifested from the boy, because the boy is special. They keep talking about how the boy is special, how he's different. And that to me always connotates somebody of who's different might not necessarily be a bad thing. That could be a good thing that he sees. Even the older lady says the little boy sees things for what they really are. But then the little boy says, you let it in. So I'm not exactly sure how much was real and how much was in their head and how much was manifested by just her pain. But that's how I looked at it, because at the ending, it's...
So do you feel like any of it
Did any
was
of that
real?
make sense?
Well, kind of. I'm just trying to nail down, like, do you feel like any of it was an actual thing that was a third party that acted on these two people, the mother and the son?
I have to say yes.
Okay, me too.
I have to say yes, but I think that entity, the Babadook, only... That's a weird word, by the way. Try to say it 20 times in a row. I think it only manifests itself to you if you are at a state of mind to allow it in, because that's what the little boy says. So the question is, where did the book come from?
Yep.
How did it get destroyed and then returned? How did it show up on the shelf to begin with? She doesn't recognize it. The little boy doesn't recognize it. Why would you ever want to read that book anyway? From the very first page, I would be like,
We're not reading this one.
no. And she tries to convince him of that. But I think like I said, I think it's a metaphor for her pain is so strong and she's in such denial about it, because even the sister-in-law or the sister says, it's been 7 years.
You got to get over it. Yeah,
Right, which is something somebody would say who didn't have their husband die on the day that their son was born.
But at the same time, it may be a more tactful way of saying it, or a more empathetic way of saying it is like, it's been 7 years. Something needs to be dealt with,
Well, she should never say it's been 7 years, because I think one of the points of the movie is that you can never tell how much of another person's pain, what the length of time is. The grieving process, there's all those stages.
But like, it's not. But I think in a positive way, like, it's not going to change. So something needs to happen.
Well, one of the stages of dying is acceptance, right?
One of the stages of dying?
Isn't it the
Oh,
stages?
you mean other people? I mean, because if you die, you've pretty much accepted death. But
no. Okay, then
Of
what is
other
it?
people
Where
dying.
where you deny it, or maybe if you're dying, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Or other people are dying.
I gotcha.
It's denial, anger, something, and then acceptance. I can't remember. There's like stages. Okay, you're right. If you're dead, right? And I think the ending of I think if we talked about it long enough, you would realize that those stages are actually... You progress through those stages in this movie. And then at the end, the pain is never going to go away. You just need to learn how to deal with it. And by accepting it, you deal with it. By looking at it face value. Because the little boy says at the end, was it bad this time? And she goes, no, not so bad.
No, but she takes those worms down there, and then it gets sucked up, and it like scares her, but not all the way. And then she, backs off.
Because a pain that
off.
strong never is going to go away. It's going to come up again. It's going to show itself, and you have to learn to deal with it. And I think once again, the worms are a metaphor for the kid feeding the fact that the mother needs to accept this pain in her life, and this is their way of moving on. It's always going to be there because the little boy says, once you let him in, that's it.
Yeah.
He's here forever. And they reiterate that like 2 or 3 times. I don't know. It's curious.
But, so I mean, in some ways, it's like I would kind of wish that it would have been able to be explained in a completely mental way, as
I did
opposed
too.
to like the kid getting thrown against the wall. I keeps popping into my head. It's like, okay, so the kid gets sucked up the stairs, gets thrown into the wall. I mean, and these are things that like. Is it her dragging him up the stairs? Is it her throwing him against the wall? I mean, like, is that a way to explain it? I don't know. Like, how literal do we take the things that we see on screen?
No, I agree with you. I think
And her puking up the blood, and I mean, all this. I mean, so it's like,
well, it's really kind of like
it's like black.
yeah, it's a
nasty.
black tar type things.
Yeah.
But it kind of reminded me of the stuff that comes out of the penguin's mouth in the Batman movie, Batman Returns,
Oh,
that
yeah.
bile or whatever that
Ugh.
comes out. Yeah, it's pretty gross. I think that the magic about this film is that once again, all great films actually fall into this category. What you take from it is what you take from it, what I take from it. So somebody who is really has gone through something similar is going to think, okay, she's manifested that pain herself, and she's the child being sucked away from her and up the stairs. She's actually doing it. That's just the way she's seeing it in her head, kind of a Fight Club type
Yep.
of thing. But for me, I actually think her pain manifested the entity known as the Babadook or the Boogeyman or whoever. And that pain was so strong and so real, it became this evil entity because she never faced it. She never went, this killed me, because who is the husband in the film?
He's just like a ghost, like a
Right,
a
but
guy
why
that-
does he talk like he knows what's going on? And he says, you're going to eventually have to give me him.
Yeah.
We're going to eventually have to do this. And then he looks to the side, and is he looking at the Babadook at that point, or is he looking at? Yeah, it's interesting because I thought
Yeah, I don't know.
it was the entity allowing her to see him, so she would be able to accept this thing happening to her.
Or is it her saying that, you know, the child's always going to remind you of me, and then like you give him to me, meaning like you kill him and then you can move on, or whatever. Like I don't know. I mean, I'm not really sure. Like if it is all we're going through this, it's all in her mind, you know, path. Then that's her looking for some sort of like resolution in the situation of like her never being able to see her husband, her feeling responsible for, you know, like if she hadn't gone in labor at that point in time, he wouldn't have taken her to the hospital, and he wouldn't have been killed, and he would still be alive, and all that stuff, you know. At some point, didn't she say? Oh no, it was the little girl that said like, "You killed your."
Yeah, see
whatever.
that I never want to see a child get hurt ever, but I almost was glad he pushed her a little bit.
Just to shut her up. you
Well,
know?
I mean, first of all, she's a bit of a bratty brat, and it's her birthday. She's having a princess birthday. I get it. It's her day. You know, she doesn't want him up in her treehouse, and she's totally horrible to him. But she does say that, and then everybody gets upset at him because he does push her, and she does fall, and she
break your nose.
in 2 different places, which is great at the end with the social workers. But at the same time, I felt a little bad that as an audience member, I was like, I probably would have pushed her too. I mean, not at my age now,
Yeah.
hopefully, but I mean, that little girl just dug into him and then said, you know, the whole reason why your dad is dead is because of you.
Yeah.
You know, that's why we're not having a party together this year, because I don't want to be around you at this time, basically.
Exactly.
You killed your dad. And the whole reason why your mom can't find another dad is because you're so weird. Well, that's what pushes him over the edge. You know, nobody ever says to him, why did you do that? What? I'll give you an example. My nephew was getting picked on at school, and he kept kicking the kid. Well, he got in trouble for kicking the kid. Well, this little boy, my nephew, is not a violent little boy. He's never kicked anybody. I've never seen him act out like that. So I turned to him. He was 5 years old. Yeah, he's a little older than his group of, you know, like he's older for his age range. Like he went into kindergarten at 5 instead of 4, preschool at 5 instead of 4. I can't remember. The dates, if you miss
Yeah,
the
it
dates, the
depends,
cutoffs. Yeah. Like I'm a younger person for my age group in my class. Anyway, I turned to him and I said, well, what was the little boy doing to you? And you know what a little 5-year-old kid said to me? He said, you're the first and only person to ask me that. All because he kicked.
Yeah.
He's automatically guilty. So we're not worried about what the reason why he did what he did. And kicking is wrong, no doubt about it. And I told him, you can't kick people. But what did the little boy do? Well, the little boy keeps pulling his hair because he has long hair. And he keeps pulling his hair and calling him a little sissy girl. Well, he got sick of it and he stuck up for himself and he kicked him. Mm-hmm. Well, that's when the teacher saw it.
Yep.
And nobody takes a second to ask Samuel, what did she say to you that made you push her out? Not that that's an excuse to push her out. So it kind of ties in with the themes that we're talking about. Is this a manifestation of her, the mother's ideas, or maybe the son's ideas? Or why is the son so strange? Is he just strange because he's, special needs? Does he have behavioral issues? What is his deal? No one takes the moment to say, what's your deal, dude? What's going on? The social workers try to pretend. Yeah. So how you doing? And I hated the fact that the social worker asked for something to drink to get the mother out of the room to talk to the kid by themselves. That's terrible. Yeah. I was in the social working field. You can't do that. I mean, that's kind of sick. Yeah. But they get their due at the end too, because... And they keep saying to Samuel, you can't say everything that's on your mind. Your father did the same thing. That's not a good trait. Well, actually, it is a good trait. Mm-hmm. Because if we said what our pain was, maybe we wouldn't manifest this really creepy guy who came and haunted us. So, I guess it's up for debate. Like we talked about, I never read anything before we do the show. And then I go back and read reviews, and then I read critics, and then I read what people, because I did read a couple things where somebody said, this is the worst movie I've ever seen, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, I'm not there. And then another person responded, you missed the total point of this movie. And I think they did, because I think they were trying to look for the poltergeist, the paranormal activity edge. Mm-hmm. And I also agree with you when you said, I wish they had made a choice whether or not it was a literal thing or not.
And I think the only thing that, like, just in thinking back through it, the only thing that kind of tips one way is her seeing the cockroaches come through the wall, the hole in the wall.
Yeah.
And then the social workers come and there's no hole in the wall.
Right. Because she says, I just had to take apart my kitchen because the cockroaches were coming through a hole.
She was cleaning. She was like,
they look at the wall and it's nothing. And she goes, oh, the wallpaper. There's a hole in the wallpaper. Because she has to make up for what
fix it. But
and where did they come from in the car when they started climbing?
They weren't there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a thing. So, okay, so those things she's manifesting, but like once, and it's one thing when you have one person dealing with something that they think they see, but once you start having another party moving around uncontrollably, that's where like it's like you kind of enter into an agreement with the filmmaker of like, everything I see on the screen I'm going to believe unless I see something to counteract that.
Right.
Like seeing the cockroaches come through the wall and then seeing that there was never a hole in the wall. We never really saw that Fight Club's a perfect example. You see him getting dragged up the stairs by Tyler Durden, and then later on you see the security footage of him dragging himself up the stairs.
I love that.
Exactly. And so then that's David Fincher saying, okay, guys, here's what you thought happened. Here's what actually happened. Now we're all on the same page.
Right.
And then with this movie, I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing or a horrible thing. It's just there was never that scene, like, or an inner cut or something of the kid getting ripped up the stairs by himself versus her pulling him up the stairs by his hair. Whatever.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I don't think it distracts from my interest in the film and what I took from it, but I agree with you.
Yeah.
I definitely think they should have made the choice, but I actually think it's a brilliant choice not to make it that direct, because then it's up to the eye of the beholder. Mm-hmm. Like we've always talked about art being the eye of the beholder. What you see from the film and what I see from the film are going to be two different things based on our experience. Mm-hmm. So you could have had a really traumatic experience when you were younger that could have put you in that boy's place, and your parental unit or an adult in your life could have done something abusive to you. I'm not saying you, just a person in general. And in your childhood mind, you made it seem like you flew up the stairs by yourself because you couldn't put it in your head that your mom or your dad was really doing this to you. So maybe it's a combination of both.
Yeah.
It's spawned this long of a conversation.
Yeah.
So
No, I mean, it's good. I think it's definitely better than just a surface, scary movie. But
yeah, I do too.
but it is, like you said, I mean, I can't really see myself watching it again, I don't think.
Well, okay, I can watch everything except for when he actually climbs the ceiling. When the Babadook comes through the ceiling and all the crickety, all the things and all the things.
And it's like really fast and really slow.
I hate it. I can't do it. There's no way.
So you mean you could just watch her kill that dog again?
Well, that's not too good. But that's
it's off
coming.
Screen, it's coming.
You know
and
it's coming,
I was building it up for myself, and I was like, all right, there have to be stakes, and I'm getting used to the whole stakes thing. We need to be invested somehow. We need to think that she will hurt her child.
I actually thought they were going to go down that road and talk about literal versus using your own imagination. I actually thought she should have made that choice, that she should have played the book out. Because when the book comes back and the book is altered, even though the mother rips up the book originally because it's starting to drive her crazy. She's starting to hear sounds. She's starting to hear knock, knock, knock in the middle of the night. She thinks it's all because she's having problems sleeping. Then she rips the book up, throws the book away. And then one day it's knock, knock, knock on the door. There's nothing there. And then she looks down and knock, knock, knock again. There's nothing there. Then knock, knock, knock again. The book's on the front doorstep. Maybe not in that sequence. But then the book is not only taped back together, but the book is altered.
And there's extra pages. Because if you notice, the first time she opened it up, there were a bunch of empty pages at the end. Yeah.
See, that makes me think it's all in her head then. I never thought about that. You're right. When she looks through the rest of the book in the beginning of the film, there's nothing on those extra pages.
So you're saying it may be like a mixture of a real thing versus, okay, this is going to actually play into the craziest theory I've had for a movie.
Okay.
This is insane. Okay. The guy that she works with at her nursing home.
Yeah.
You see him in 3 scenes.
Yeah.
And he's there at work, and then she gets sick, and he's like, she says that her son's sick, and then he's like, oh no, I'll cover for you. And then she goes out to the mall, and then she comes back home, and she was late coming home, and everybody was freaking out. And then so all of a sudden he shows up. He shows up with the toy airplane or the airplane model and the flowers. Did he give her flowers?
Yeah, he gave her flowers, yeah.
And then a toy airplane model.
And he said, I had one of these when I was sick.
That's right.
And Samuel goes, I'm not sick.
I'm not sick, exactly. But then after that, he's gone.
Yeah.
The rest of the movie. Why is he in this movie? Right? Now, I'm not saying this is a real, true theory, but it would be interesting to go down this road. What happens if he's the one who put the Babadook book in there and he's the one who repaired the book?
Why?
Because he's crazy. I don't know. Just why is he in this movie?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, but you really are trying to grab a
I know.
literal meaning out of everything.
I know.
And that's cool.
Why is he in there, though?
I never thought about it.
Maybe he got cut out of the end. I don't know. But why would you keep him in? There's no reason for him to be in there. He gives her a little bit of hey, you're,
and then,
looking good.
Yeah, you don't need to have anything but...
You don't even see him at the end of the movie.
You don't need to have her... You could have her... leave work because she wasn't feeling well, regardless of whether or not he was going to look at her,
or she could have just left,
or she could have been just
get
zoned
fired
out
later on.
She gets her shifts taken away.
She gets her shift taken away, I guess.
Those crappy people act that way when people are sick. She says, I'm sick. What am I going to do? I hate when managers and bosses do that. That's why I vowed to never be like that when I became a manager, because you're sick. I have to work extra. Okay. If you're lying to me, I'm going to find out.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have to pay the consequences. But I don't give somebody, that lady needed to have a sick day.
Yeah.
Poor thing. Just needed to sleep. Yeah. A couple of weeks. But that's a good question, because why is his vehicle presented? What did he do to change and alter the storyline to make us understand something differently?
He doesn't.
But there's nothing alluding to the fact that he put the book there. There's no reason why he would.
Nope.
There's no reason why you see any pain in his life. Like The Ring, you have to make the tape over and over again. The movie The Ring, So
Well, other than
I
like,
think you're reaching a little
Oh,
bit,
yeah.
but I'm wondering. You're right.
but if it's a half and half, let's say it's a half and half of like he starts the whole ball rolling with the book.
But then you'd have to allude to some reason why that character would do that.
Yep.
Or you would have to see him do something. See, I just thought he was attracted to her.
Sure.
Or kind of had a crush on her. Or
But then he's just gone, like halfway through the movie, and it's right at the time when he drops off that she's already ripped up the book, I think. I'd
When
have
he
to
drops
go back
by?
through. She's ripped up the book. He drops by, and then the book comes back, like right after he drops by. May have even been the same day. Yeah, because she had the flowers in her hand, I think,
when she gets the book.
when she gets the knock on the knock on the door.
Right, because she puts the flowers down on the counter to
counter.
read the book again and sees
Again.
the extra pages.
And then she goes out and burns it, and then but the guy's gone after that throughout the whole movie, and then it's off to the races with her mental gymnastics.
Maybe that's
But-
part 2. Maybe you get
well,
to see
I
his
don't know.
backstory.
I don't know,
You
but or I was thinking like Saw. You know how like Saw had
All
you
the
barely
inner-
even saw the guy, and then
Yeah, I
it has
think
backstory later on.
I think if we were talking to the filmmaker or the actresses or even the young actor, I think they would say that we're going down. That we're trying to reach for too
Tried
literal.
too hard.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense why he's in there. He's not
No.
necessary on any level.
So is that just poor writing?
I don't know. Is that one of those plot holes or whatever that you were talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think
I've been thinking about that through
Yeah.
every film now, and I'm like,
I
that's
know.
a character flaw. That's a plot. No, that's a character flaw.
I think that's what was it? Unexplained
Events,
unexplained character
choices, or
yeah.
right.
Whatever that was called. Yeah, I can look it up. But
But that is an interesting question because
Yeah.
why? Okay, well, I mean, maybe there's just, there's a line from The Big Chill where William Hurt is watching a TV show and somebody comes down and goes, "What's going on?" There's a bunch of guys in the 1930s wearing, tailored suits and hats, and William Hurt goes, and they're all wearing the same suits and hats, not the same suits and hats, but that style back there in the 30s. And William Hurt goes, "I think the guy in the hat did something bad." And there's like 30 guys
All
in
of them.
hats, right? And then the other character goes, "Well, what did he do that is so bad?" And William Hurt goes, "Sometimes you just have to let art flow over you." So maybe we just have to let art flow over us. Maybe this is not.
it did bother me though. The guy bothered
I
me.
never thought. What's
then-
bothering me now is that
yeah.
I didn't think of that when I was watching it. I just
Okay.
accepted it for what it was.
Yeah, you just dropped it.
So I wonder what psychological things that says about me.
Well, I don't know. I mean, but you're really keyed into like things happen for a reason.
Yeah,
you
and I'm surprised. That's why I'm a bit.
Yeah.
I'm a bit not ashamed of myself, but I'm a bit like
And they
surprised.
spent time to introduce, like, just like they spent
Yeah.
time to introduce the next door neighbor lady. I mean,
And
and there's
usually
reason.
with a character like that, you see him wink at the end of the movie, and they're gonna date, and then she's all happy
Or,
again.
yeah, he shows up.
Or
Like, that would have been a perfect.
Or he
way
goes,
to-
"What's down here in the basement? Do you guys go down?" "Oh no, we don't go down there."
Yeah.
"Oh no, this is whatever." I mean,
That would have been something, and it would
Yeah.
have at least been him in the movie 3 times as opposed to him.
right,
being in
because
the
a
movie.
motif is three
At least,
reoccurring.
yeah.
At least 3 reoccurring patterns to make it a motif. So yeah, good question.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look it up because
Yeah.
somebody has had to have had that same question because
Yeah.
it's a good question.
And yeah, and I hope they don't make any kind of like a sequel or something to it.
Oh, of course not. I was making a joke
Okay.
about that. I was
That would-
making an Insidious 2 joke about that because
Oh.
all those
See,
have.
and I'm not. Like I said, I haven't seen any of those movies, and I have no desire to see them. So something kind of drew me to this, even though I knew it was going to be. I don't want to call it a chore, but I knew it was going to be.
Yeah, because
You
when I
know.
saw the trailer, I was like, "What? Why did Josh?" And you just said it.
Yeah.
You didn't. We didn't even. We were like,
We
"Well, what are we
hadn't
going
even
to
talked about
No,
it,
what
yeah.
are we going to do next week?" And you were like, "Let's watch the Babadook." And I was like, "Okay, what's that?" And you're like, "It's kind of scary movie." And I was like, "What? Wait, let's watch it together." But then I watched the trailer, and I was like, I think I'm going to have to do this during the day."
Yeah.
And I plotted it all out, like I said, and I waited a specific time to see it because I knew, especially if I was getting ready to go to bed, this is not the movie I'd want to see before I was getting ready to go to
I
bed.
did that last night.
Oh yeah, no.
I did. I
Actually,
made that problem. I made that issue with The Ring.
Oh,
Steph
never.
Steph was gone, and I started watching it at like midnight, and it was all dark, and I was in my apartment.
That
and,
would have kept me up. This one I would have slept after this one
Yeah.
because I convinced myself it was a psychological thriller drama about manifestations of pain. So it's not something underneath my bed. It was
Yeah.
something only underneath
On
her
her.
bed because of the life situation.
Her mental state. I
The
watched
Ring,
yeah.
forget about it. I'm not. As soon as every VHS tape I saw from that point on, I was like, "Oh my god, that movie's creepy."
Yeah, it is. I watched 2 episodes of Mad Men after that just to like.
Oh, that
cleanse
probably
my
helped your
palate.
disposition because that's a little twisted in itself. It's
Well,
not
but
scary,
at least
but
it's just people like doing bad things to each other as
that's
opposed
true.
to weird.
yeah, that's true.
monsters.
That show can get a bit trippy though, a bit surreal in its
Oh yeah,
places. So
it is.
Yeah,
it is.
to where
especially
you're.
these last few seasons. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I haven't seen any of the 7 seasons, so I'm going to catch up once it comes out on
Well, I'll
Net.
tell you that the end of the end of the show is. I'm not gonna do that.
Actually, they just had all these critics, what they thought of the end. Yeah.
Really, I'm really trying to stay away from it.
All
yeah.
I saw was Don Draper's ending, and then I went.
Yeah,
I clicked. I was like, I don't
I'm
want to know.
doing pretty good, I think. Like I'm trying to get there. I've only got about 6 episodes left.
I got through the whole year of not seeing the last episodes of Sons of Anarchy, the last season of Sons, without
Yeah.
knowing anything.
Wow, that's good.
Nothing. Well, and I'm
But you're
Facebook
not
friends.
seeking it out though.
No, but I have to click through a lot of different stuff because they would say "rest in peace" so and so, and I would just have to click through it really quick.
Yeah.
Or the body count is for Sons of. But they were really smart about how they did that on Facebook. They would say the body count is ... and you'd have to click on the link in order to see what they were talking about. So they were really smart about it.
That's
but
right.
I didn't. I would just divert my eyes. Anyway, so do we have anything else we want to talk about with this film? I do want to mention one thing.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, just 3 days ago, 2 days before I watched the movie, I was at my job. I work at a hotel. I'm a hotel manager. I see a lot of people. That's how you and I met, actually. And I speak to a lot of people, and films inevitably come up. What a surprise. And I actually mentioned Australian movies to this one lady. She was from Australia. He was from, she was from Ireland. He was from Australia. And he said, "No worries." And I said, "Where are you from?" He said, "Australia." I said, "I think I'm the only American that says no worries," because I say it all the time. I don't know where I got it from. I said, "By the way, I think your films are second to none. And I do think Americans make better films than the rest of the world in general." And that might be some kind of twisted American pride, but I don't think it is. I think we make really quality films
Yep.
in this country. And I think we set the bar.
We do.
I just think we do.
And
But
that's
no,
not
it's not an ego
jingoism or
no,
anything.
no,
like that.
it's not an ego thing at all. You can match it with product, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
The supply and demand's there. I can say we make the best films, and then I can say, go see this, go see this, go see this, and they are great movies, and
Mm-hmm.
we made them. The Americans made them. Okay, that sounded a bit egotistical. But second to us, I think Australia has the most interesting films the last 2 decades, and we've talked about a few of these films. So I just wanted to mention a couple of them really good. All the Mad Max series is Australia. Okay, the Strictly Ballroom film I was talking about,
Yep.
that's Australia. All the Baz Luhrmann films, Moulin Rouge. Did you know Babe, the movie about the pig, was an Australian film?
She was in it. The director was in it. Babe, Pig in the City.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
the
she knows-
director and writer of
Oh,
this
that's
movie
part 2.
was in the second one. Yes.
Yeah, but we talked about Dead Calm. You remember the Nicole Kidman one on the boat when we talked about?
I've not seen it, but you've talked about it. Yeah.
Okay, so Dead Calm, Romper Stomper. Have you ever seen that?
I haven't, but that's Russell Crowe, right?
Crazy good.
Yeah.
Crazy interesting. The Piano. I didn't know that. Really?
No.
Okay, that's one you should seek out. There's a movie called Sirens that's very good.
Mm-hmm.
Muriel's Wedding we've talked about. Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Yeah.
There's a movie called Some of Us with Russell Crowe. Shine. I forgot Shine was
yeah.
The Japanese Story, which is Toni Collette, and she is working in the corporate world, and she's sort of the liaison between her and this Japanese group, and she has sort of an affair with one of these Japanese members of another corporation, and it's another interesting film. You can't talk about too much about what happens because you're like, wait, what just happened? Animal Kingdom.
Animal Kingdom, yes. Yeah.
Very good. Have you seen the Sapphires?
No.
About the
Oh, yeah, with
Outback,
Chris O'Dowd.
Yeah, singing group. Spectacular.
I haven't seen that, but I mean, it looks interesting.
And now the Babadook.
Yeah, well, and also that guy David Michaud who did
The Sapphires?
did he do the Sapphires?
I don't know.
No, he did Animal Kingdom.
Oh, okay.
He did another movie that.
Is he the sexy beast guy?
No,
Oh.
that's Jonathan Glazer. He's cool. Jonathan Glazer started off with music videos. But so let's see.
A lot of people did.
Oh yeah. He did The Rover, which I haven't seen yet.
Right, Australian film.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So the reason why I was telling everybody about those films is, one, I think you should see these movies, and two, there's a quality. Now, there's very separate categories in America: mainstream films, independent films. And then there's subcategories in those. You have the Avengers, and then you have, Mission Impossibles. You have those huge mainstream films, and then you have other mainstream films that are less epic and more, not adult as in porn, but more grown-up themed movies.
Yeah.
And then there are independent films, and they're never close to the same.
Yeah.
You don't get the same quality. You have to go to an independent theater to see an independent film because it has a different quality. Now, those worlds are melding together a little bit more because, Silver Linings Playbook was an independent film, even though it plays like a mainstream film, because even though it's really odd and it's a very strange mainstream film, it became a mainstream film, but it was an independent film. She won the Independent Spirit Award. I think the screenplay won. All these other things were nominated for that. But anyway.
Well, that's a whole thing because you've got large movie companies making their own, you got Paramount Vantage, and I mean,
Right.
they've got their own kind of like side shingles that they throw money at that will make movies that are considered independent, even though they're backed by huge studios.
And that has a lot to do with distribution now, because it's harder to get a movie made and then distributed versus having a subcategory made and then distributed by Paramount or whoever.
Yeah. Well, and sadly enough, you can, even though people don't like them, you can thank the Weinsteins because they started all that.
Well, I don't know why. I know why personally I don't like him, because I had a personal encounter with Harvey Weinstein, but that doesn't change the fact that I love the movies that he has something to do with, and there's a ton of them. But the point about mentioning all these Australian films is Australian movies have a way of being independent and mainstream at the same time. Like Priscilla, Queen of the Desert was a huge hit here and there. Dead Calm was a huge hit there. I even think Romper Stompers was
I definitely heard of it.
Yeah, but they're still grainy and independent and have this artistic edge to it. And they're never soft and cushiony. They always have some form of an edge to them. Even though Muriel's Wedding is a comedy, some really dark stuff happens in that movie, especially to one of the other characters. Actually, really dark things happen in that movie, but it's played in a way where it's sad, but then you're kind of laughing at it at the same time, and you're kind of glad that's not your life. But it still has this upbeat, happy ending to it. You're like, wait, what just happened here? You have all these gamut of emotions that you don't normally get in. You have to have subcategories in America to get these things. So I say bravo to Australia. They're making some of the best movies out there. The ones that I just mentioned, I definitely think people's minds would be blown. Because if you watch Strictly Ballroom and then saw Babe and then saw The Babadook and then saw The Piano, you'd be like, wait, stop.
Yeah.
And they all have this same quality of originality and innovation and that kind of stuff. So anyway, something to think about.
That's great. That sounds good. Yeah. So definitely seek out some Australian films. And I need to too. Like you said, I mean, The Piano, and I know that's got an Academy Award winning.
Yeah, she won. Well, both of them won. Anna Paquin and
Harvey Keitel?
No, Holly Hunter.
Holly Hunter. Okay.
Yeah, Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress. And she was only 10 years old, 11. She was the youngest person to win the Oscar.
But not the youngest to be nominated because of Tatum O'Neal. Right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Which I haven't seen that one either.
She's fantastic. She's the lead, but she won the supporting character.
In Paper Moon?
Yeah, she's the lead. She's the lead. She's a whip, man. So was Anna Paquin. I was like, who is this girl? And she's going to win the Oscar. And people were like, she's like 2 years old. And I was like, I'm telling you, she's going to win the Oscar. And she sure enough did.
Wow.
Yeah, she sure enough did, and deserves it too. So that'll be, we'll have to go back and do a whole segment on just Australian films, and we have to say 4 ones that you haven't seen that I have seen, or vice versa, or something like that.
That'd be cool. And I would want to do a similar thing with Korean films too, because I think that's a whole nother subsection of movies that I've kind of delved into that it seems like a lot of people aren't.
Now that's
really.
all Old Boy and okay.
I mean, yeah.
What's the one with the kids, the Hunger Games? That's Japanese though.
Yeah, that is Japanese. That's
What's that called?
Battle Royale.
Yeah, that's severe.
It is severe.
Now that's some
but you know,
real
though,
stuff there.
It's good. It's
well
good.
done.
It's funny, and it's biting and it's creepy.
Well, any movie where you're going to blow a teacher or a student's head up by putting a ring around it and it actually happens, and I'm not giving out anything.
No.
And you're like, wait, did that just actually happen? Yep, that's head guts just
But you get
flying
to
down
see,
the wall.
You get to see people in their most primal, which you don't. I mean, that's the whole Lord of the Flies thing, you know.
Right.
And so you get to see that, and we don't. You know, we live in civilized society, and so we don't run into that very much. But it's
Not
it's
openly.
creepy when you see that.
Yeah.
So all right. Well, so you can go to our website, actorandengineer.com. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/actorandengineer, and you can tweet us on Twitter. We're at actorengineer. Anything else for this week?
I'd just like to ask people if they'd make some suggestions, what they want us to talk about.
Definitely.
You know, we've done a few suggested shows, or one suggested show so far. You know, we're always looking for something new to talk about and interested. I'd love to hear what people thought about this movie, The Babadook.
And it's available on Netflix. Yeah,
if
easy
it's
to watch.
literal, if it's metaphysical, what is it? You know,
Or how crazy my idea of the guy
the
dropping
guy,
off
man.
the
I'm
the
gonna go to sleep
flowers.
thinking of that tonight. What the hell was that guy doing in the movie?
Otherwise, he just got dropped. So I mean,
He's completely unnecessary,
Oh, yeah.
which makes me think your theory has some.
it's probably not a real thing.
It has some weight though, because why he doesn't need to be there
No.
on any level.
No.
You could have written him completely out, and you would never notice the gaps. You could actually take his scenes out, and you would never notice the gaps.
It's true. Yeah. Yep.
So
There
it's
you go.
got to have something. So people out there, help us.
Help us, please.
Help us.
Tell us either we're crazy or we're not crazy, and we've unlocked the secret behind this movie. All right. We'll see you next week.
Until then.
Bye.